continue, guys. Let's continue with our revision sessions. Up to this point, we have studied the first 4 chapters. Rather, we have revised the first 4 chapters. So now let's try to revise chapter number 5. A relatively small and easy chapter. So before we start with business level strategies, first of all, who all are included in business level management? If you remember the first chapter, strategic levels in an organization, we had 3 strategic levels: corporate level, business level, functional level. So corporate level included chairman, CEO, board of directors and other senior executives. Business level managers will include all the business heads. They are responsible for that particular business or division. So the business heads or the divisional heads will be responsible for framing business level strategies. They will be responsible for the performance of their own businesses. So here in this chapter, we need to study 3 important points. The first one being Michael Porter's 5 forces model for competition analysis. Michael Porter has given us 5 different forces wherein we need to check whether the pressure or the force of that particular component is very strong, is manageable or weak, and then decide whether that industry is attractive or unattractive. If it is attractive, you may continue to be in the same business, or you are a new investor, you may invest in that business, in that industry. So Michael Porter has given us that 5 forces model. This is the first thing that we will study in this chapter. The second thing that we will study here is again given by Mr. Michael Porter, Michael Porter's generic strategies. And the third one is very small, very basic one, best cost provider strategy. So in this chapter, we need to study 3 things. Let's start with the first one, Michael Porter's 5 forces model for competition analysis. Michael Porter said, whenever you want to analyze the competition, whenever you want to check whether the industry is suitable, competitive or non-competitive, attractive or unattractive, you should look at 5 different factors. First, threat of new entrants. How easily can a new entrant enter into an industry? If a new entrant enters into an industry, tell me, won't it be a problem for the existing businesses? Yes, they will eat up their market share. They will try to reduce the selling price, which will force the other businesses who are already there in that business to reduce the selling price. Will that not affect the pricing? Will that not affect the profitability? Will that not affect the market share? Will that not affect the market position? Yes. That is why we should analyze how easily a new entrant can enter into this industry. If a new entrant can enter into this industry easily, then industry is unattractive. But if the new entrant cannot enter into this industry easily, then you can say the industry is attractive. So in order to stop the new entrants from entering into this industry, the industry creates something called as entry barriers. Barriers for new entrants. That is a separate question that we need to study in this chapter. We will study, but let's try to understand Michael Porter's 5 forces model first. So one separate question can be asked in Michael Porter's 5 forces model. Apart from this, one separate question can be asked, what are the barriers for new entrants? What barriers will the existing industry players create for the new entrants so that they don't enter into this industry? These are also called as entry barriers. Michael Porter's 5 forces model, the first one was threat of new entrants. how easily can a new entrant come and establish their business in that particular industry. If it is easy for them to enter, they will eat up my profits, they will eat up my market share, they will eat up my market position. So if the new entrants can enter easily, unattractive. If they cannot enter easily, attractive. I hope you understood this. This was your first point. Second point, bargaining power of buyers, bargaining power of suppliers. Buyers means customer. Second point is bargaining power of buyers. If you are supplying industrial goods, what do you mean by industrial goods? B2B, business to business. Let's say I am into manufacturing tires. I make tires. You are into business of manufacturing cars. Will I be selling cars to individual customers or I'll be selling tires? Will I be selling tires to individual customers or to the car manufacturing companies? I'll be selling it to car manufacturing companies. So if I am selling my tires to car manufacturing companies, don't you think so they become my customer? So if they become my customer, they can come and tell me, if you don't give me tires at a specified price, then we will not buy from you. And when they say we, they form a cartel, they form a group. Maruti will say, Tata Motors business manager is a very good friend of mine. Kia Motors business manager is a very good friend of mine. So if you don't give us at a specified price, we will not buy from you. And if I am giving up to their demand, if I reduce the selling price, which means I am reducing my profits. So if I am reducing my selling price, I am reducing my profits. Can I say, if the buyer is having a bargaining power, if the buyer is having a strong bargaining power, the industry is unattractive. What if the other way around happens? Buyer comes to me and asks for the reduction in selling price. I tell them, no sir, no ma'am, we cannot reduce the selling price. Whatever we have quoted is the best price that we can offer. If you want, you can go to some other tire manufacturer, we don't mind, but we will not reduce our selling price. So here, does the buyer have bargaining power? No. In that situation, my industry will be attractive. Whenever I say bargaining power of buyer, I also mean the selling price of the product. I also mean some extra services that he may ask, like give us the delivery, give us insurance, in-transit insurance, give us good quality tires. So all this also can be asked. So be careful. Again, threat of new entrant. If the new entrant can enter easily, it is unattractive. If they cannot enter easily, the industry is attractive. If the buyers are able to bargain, they are having a strong bargaining power, industry is unattractive. But if the bargaining power of buyer is not there, or they have a weak bargaining power, industry is attractive. Bargaining power of supplier. What do you mean by bargaining power of supplier? If I am a tire manufacturing company, what is the main source of raw material for me? The main source of raw material will be rubber. So if I am tire manufacturing business and my main source of raw material is rubber, the supplier can also be having some bargaining power. So if they increase the cost of raw material, or if they charge me for transportation, if they charge me for loading, unloading, if they charge me for in-transit insurance, don't you think so they are commanding a high bargaining power? So if suppliers also start commanding high bargaining power, don't you think so my industry will be unattractive? Yes. So if the buyers also is commanding bargaining power, supplier is also commanding bargaining power, my profits will shrink further. So I need to be very careful here. I need to check the industry in which we are operating. Does the supplier have bargaining power? If the supplier is having bargaining power, the chances of me giving up to the demands will be more. So it will lead to increase in cost. Selling price will not be changing because I am still selling to the car manufacturing companies. They will not increase the selling price. So selling price remaining the same, my cost increases. Tell me, will it result into reduction in profits? Yes. If it results into reduction of profits, it means the industry is unattractive. So suppliers' bargaining power is strong, industry is unattractive. But what if there are many suppliers in the market? He or she tells me I want to increase the price of the raw material. I tell him, if you want to increase, I will go to some other supplier. So will that supplier have any bargaining power? No. Because if he or she increases the raw material prices, I will go to some other supplier to buy the raw material. Tell me, the supplier is having a weak bargaining power. So if the weak bargaining power of supplier will result into industry being attractive. So we studied 3 Michael Porter's 5 forces model. The fourth one, rivalry among existing competitors, existing players. How is the rivalry among the existing players in the industry? Are they earning money? Is the competition a healthy competition? If the competition is healthy competition, they are also earning money. The chances are the industry is very attractive. Why? Everybody is earning money. But what if there is a cutthroat competition? There is a price war going on. If there is a price war, do you think that industry will be able to earn money? No. There will be low industry profitability. So if there will be low industry profitability, there will be stiff competition, cutthroat competition, there will be price war. Do you think those businesses are attractive? No. So just to conclude, you will check the rivalry among the existing players, whether the rivalry is competitive, whether the competition is healthy. If the competition is healthy, if the rivalry is competitive, the industry will be attractive. But if the rivalry is cutthroat, there is a price war and the industry profitability is also low, then industry is unattractive. Here also institute can ask you a question. When can you say that industry profitability is low? Again, I'll reframe my question. When can you say that the industry profitability is low and there is a cutthroat competition? So we will study this later. I hope you have understood the first 4 points of Michael Porter's 5 forces model. Last one, threat of substitutes. The industry in which we are doing business, what are the chances of development of alternative products, substitute products? If there are chances of development of alternative products, substitute products, the industry is unattractive. But there are no near future, there is no alternatives, no substitutes available in the near future, then the industry will be considered attractive. So if I feel that the business that we are doing, the industry in which we are doing business, there is no substitute available and in foreseeable future also there is no substitute available, then that business will be considered as attractive. But if I see that there are alternative products, there are substitutes available in the market, will I be able to command more money? Will I be able to increase my prices? No, this will limit my prices. So that industry is unattractive. I hope you have understood this. So let's try to understand, let's try to read this. Michael Porter's 5 forces model for competition analysis. Every business will operate in a competitive environment. Competition was, is and will be there everywhere in all the industries all over the globe at any point of time. Competition will be always there in every industry, but the state of competition will be different in different industries. Few industries will require more capital, Few industries will require less capital. Few industries will have many competitors, few industry will have very few competitors. So the competition differs. The level of competition will be different in different industries. Competitive state of industry applies a strong influence on how the firms will develop their strategy. I will develop my strategy on the basis of the competition that is there in the industry. So Michael Porter came up with Michael Porter's 5 forces model for competition analysis, wherein he has expressed how can you find out whether the industry is attractive or unattractive using those 5 forces model. What are the steps? Firstly, identify the competitive pressure associated in each of the above 5 forces. So what are the pressure that you will be facing in each of the 5 forces? Check for your industry in which you are doing business or which you are planning to do business. Which of the competitive pressure you will be facing. Then evaluate how strong is the pressure, whether you will be able to face the pressure or you will not be able to face the pressure. And then determine the collective strength, whether for you that business is attractive or unattractive. So this is the diagram, guys. First one, threat of new entrants. This means the possibility of the new competitors who are not currently in the market entering in the industry. New entrants can reduce the industry profitability. How can they reduce the industry profitability? By increasing the production capacity. So more supply, increasing the supply of the product, selling at a lower price. So this will all result into reduction in industry profitability. This results in smaller share of market for existing firms. So my share will be reducing and it will reduce my profits also. So what can the existing players who are operating in the business can do? They can create a barrier, entry barrier. They can erect a entry barrier which will discourage the potential new entrants. The greater the strength of these barriers, weaker will be the force. Second point, bargaining power of buyers. A powerful force, buyers of an industry or a product can sometimes exert considerable pressure on the existing firms to sell at a lower price, to secure at lower price or bargain for higher quality. As I told you, they will either try to reduce the selling price or they will try to get some extra services. Give us delivery, give us loading, unloading free, give us in-transit insurance, give us better quality of products. So this is evident. How can you say that there are bargaining power of buyers? When the buyer knows about the product, what sort of product is available, or they know about the substitute which is available. So you have no room for negotiation. You will have to do what they tell you to do because they have complete knowledge of the raw material. So a car manufacturing company person comes, executive comes to me and tells me, you are selling me at this price. Your competitor is selling at this price. If you give me at XYZ price, then only I will buy from you. Otherwise, I will strike a deal with that person, that company. They buy in large quantities. One of the reasons why they are able to bargain is they buy in bulk. And the product is not perceived as critical to buyer's need. Customer knows that we have other options also. If you are not giving us tires, we will go to some other person to get tires. You are not the only business, right? Yes. Bargaining power of suppliers. Bargaining power of suppliers refers to the power of suppliers who can exert pressure by threatening to raise the price. Now the rubber manufacturing company is trying to bargain. They want to increase their raw material prices. Or they can reduce the quantity of raw material. Or they will tell me that I will not give you delivery. I will not give you loading, unloading complimentary. I will not give you in-transit insurance. So if they increase their raw material prices, my cost will increase. If my cost increases, my profit comes down. So supplier strength can adversely affect a firm's profitability and can pose considerable threat. So suppliers' bargaining power can increase when? When do you say that suppliers have a high bargaining power? When their products are crucial to the buyer. So that rubber is very important for me and he is the only one who's supplying that rubber. Or they can erect a high switching cost. They can tell me, you want to shift, you shift, but you'll have to pay us compensation. So I'll have to pay money to that supplier also and to the new supplier. Might as well I pay to him, no, instead of paying it to some other third party and paying him also, I'll pay only to one person. So they are erecting a switching cost. Tell me, earlier we were using Colgate. Then we shifted to Patanjali. Did Colgate come and ask for money? Why did you shift from Colgate to Patanjali? Give us money. No. Were we able to shift easily? Yes. But now imagine, you are taking some software, using IT services from one software company. They have written in agreement, even if you terminate the contract, you will have to pay the fees for entire year. Tell me, will you be able to switch in between the year? If a new software developer comes to you and tells you, use my software, I am giving you 50% discount. Even if he is offering you 50% discount, don't you think so? Don't you think so? You have already paid some money to the existing software provider. Will you be paying twice to the existing one and to the new one, even if that new one is offering you 50% discount? No, you will tell him, come next year, I will buy your software, but come next year, not now. So in a way, the existing supplier has avoided that situation. Otherwise, if he would have not mentioned that in the clause, even if you switch, you will have to pay me money, you would have switched easily. What's the point? So this is one of the key tricks a supplier can use. He can always ask, if you want to go, you go. I am not stopping you, but you pay me the money also, because you are under contractual obligation. They are more concentrated than buyers. Sellers are less in numbers. So this was your third point. Fourth point, the nature of rivalry in the industry. The intensity of the rivalry in an industry is a significant determinant of industry attractiveness. So how good is the competition, how good is the industry, you will come to know from your competitors who are fighting for the same customer. The intensity of rivalry can influence the cost of supplier, can the cost of distribution. The more intensive the rivalry, the less attractive is the industry. So if there is a cutthroat competition, industry is not good. Threat from substitute. The last one. Substitute products offering a price advantage and performance improvement to the consumer can drastically alter the competitive character of an industry. You know, with the introduction of smartphone, many industries failed. Alarm clock, cameras, right? Radio. All these industries are barely surviving. You know why? Because all these facilities are available in my smartphone. So I need not buy alarm clock separately. I need not buy a camera separately. Only professionals use cameras, right? Otherwise, we can use our own cameras, own mobile phones to click pictures, to record a video, right? So, threat of substitute. A threat of substitute comes from a product that are not the same, yet can satisfy the same customer needs. So, I don't need an alarm clock now. My phone works like an alarm clock. I don't need a camera now. My phone has a good resolution of camera inbuilt in my phone. The greater the number of substitutes, that the customers perceive and use. The greater the number of substitutes that customers perceive and use, the harder it is for the company to hold on to customer loyalty. So if you see, the person who's manufacturing alarm clocks will not be able to charge more money. If they charge more money, I'll tell them, I have my cell phone. So if you want to charge higher price, might as well I'll use my cell phone. So will they be able to increase their prices? No. The more attractive the price performance ratio, the harder it is to increase the industry profits. Just to conclude, if there are substitutes available, industry is unattractive. If the substitutes are not available, industry is attractive. Okay. So this was one question for Michael Porter's 5 forces model, guys. But institute can ask you two separate questions. Apart from this Michael Porter's 5 forces model, institute can ask you two separate questions apart from this. Which are those two questions? Number one, barriers to new entrants. Barriers to new entrants. How can the existing industry create entry barriers so that the new entrant does not enter into the industry easily? This is the first question that we can ask. The second, when can you say that the industry profitability is low and there is a cutthroat competition, there is a price war going on? So let's tackle these two questions separately. So barriers to new entrants. There are 7 points that need to be writing in your exam. Students generally ask me, sir, if a question comes for 5 marks, how many points should we write? Should we write only 5 points? Whatever is there in our study mat, whatever is there in our institute study mat, whatever is there in our JKSC study mat, you need to write all those points. So even if the question is asked for 5 marks, it has 7 points, you need to write all the 7 points. Okay. So 7 points. What are the 7 points? Barriers to new entrants. First one, capital requirement. Tell me, if the capital required to do a particular business is more, is huge, will the new entrant enter into the industry? No. So, but if the capital required is less, many people will enter, many competitors will enter? Yes. So what does this point say? If large capital, huge sum of capital is required, we can stop the new entrant from entering the industry. Number 2, economies of scale. What do you mean by economies of scale? Economies of scale means benefit of large scale production. If you are an organization who is already established in the industry, you have a reputation, you have market position, you have market share, so customers know your products, naturally you will be producing in bulk quantity, but the new entrant who has just entered will not be able to match your quantities. You are manufacturing 1 lakh units, for example, but the new entrant is manufacturing only 1,000 units. You are manufacturing 1 lakh units, the new competitor is manufacturing only 1,000 units. Tell me, whose cost per unit will be less? Whose cost per unit? I am not talking about the total cost, guys. Cost per unit. Cost per unit will be less for the existing players. So the new entrant is in a disadvantageous position. Why? They will not be able to achieve this reduced cost until and unless they produce 1 lakh units. But they don't have the demand for this. Why will they produce at such a large quantity? So this is the second barrier, economies of scale. We will produce at such a huge quantity that our cost per unit comes down. If our cost per unit comes down, we can reduce the selling price. So this will act as a barrier for the new entrant to enter into the market. The third one is brand identity. Tell me, if you are buying a car, if you are buying an air conditioner, if you are buying a refrigerator, will you buy a new product or some product which has some value in the market, some reputation in the market? Yes, you will buy a product which has some reputation in the market. This was actually faced by Japanese car companies in 1980s. When Japanese companies tried to enter into American market, already Ford was there. General Motors was there. They were doing good. So Japanese companies entered into US market. Nobody knew about Honda. So why will people trust their brand? So they had to incur lots and lots of marketing expenditure. They had to do lots and lots of research in order to get hold of the market share. So brand identity also creates a barrier. You know why? Because in today's time, if I want to buy a product, let's say worth 1 lakh, will I be, going for a reputed brand or a new brand? A new company or an established company? Naturally established company, because I have faith, they have market reputation. So this is brand identity. The fourth one is switching cost. A new competitor will generally try to enter into market by lowering the price. So the existing customer may get attracted with the reduction in price, but you as an existing player in the market can erect something called as switching cost. So suppose you are a software developer. You have developed a software for me. I am your client. Now a new entrant comes to me and negotiates a better deal than yours. If that new entrant is offering me the same services at a reduced price, don't you think so I will shift, I will switch? Yes. But you are not a newbie. You are already established player. What you will do? You have entered into a contract with me. If you want to shift, you may shift, but you will have to pay me the entire year's money. Now you tell me, am I a fool to pay you and to pay the new entrant? No. What I'll tell him? You come next year. This year I cannot enter into this agreement because I have already entered into an agreement. So come next year. So this is also a way to fight the new entrant. This year, will I be able to shift? No. And next year, you will offer me a better deal than them. So in a way, you have avoided competition. So the first one was capital requirement, second one was economies of scale, third one was brand identity, fourth one was switching cost, fifth one product differentiation. Your product is so new, then even if a new entrant comes and tries to do business, he or she will not be able to match the qualities of your product, the features of your product. If they try to match, it will be so expensive for them that they will not be able to afford. They will not be able to charge such a higher price. So this is product differentiation. That your product is so unique, so different from the new entrant that the new entrant will not be able to succeed in their endeavors. Sixth point. Access to distribution channel. You may be making a very good product. A new entrant will be making a good product, but until and unless it reaches the doorstep of the customer, is it of any use? No. So what do the existing competitors do? What type of strategy they use? They don't give access to the distribution channel. They try to limit the distributors. So I have entered into an exclusive agreement with my distribution channel. You will be distributing the goods only for me or my group companies. If you want to distribute goods for some other rival companies, you cannot do it. You want to distribute goods for some other industry, you can do it. But from same industry, you cannot do. So this is the problem which was faced by Patanjali. In earlier times, they were not getting distribution channels, so they had to open up their own franchisee stores. Now you tell me, if I am making the best product, I am not having a distribution channel. Why? Because the existing competitors have all the distribution channel with them. Will I be able to survive? No. Though online option is always there. But tell me, no, if my target audience is rural population, if my target audience is someone who's not having access to internet, they want to go to a shop and buy my product, will I be able to perform well? No. So Patanjali was facing these issues. The existing FMCG giants were not giving them access to distribution channels. And the last one, a very simple one. Firstly, what are the 6 points that we studied here? Capital requirement, economies of scale, brand identity, product differentiation, switching cost, access to distribution channel, and the last one, aggressive retaliation by the existing competitors. Do you think if a new entrant comes into the industry, the existing competitors will welcome them with a garland? Come, we welcome you, we will do business together. Do they do this? Will they do this? No. What they will do? They will fight back. Similarly, when Jio entered into telecom business, Airtel immediately started a marketing campaign showing the world how their network is superior, how they are adding the tower in every hour, right? So they just wanted to aggressively fight back because they knew if Jio entered and he started offering customers SIMs for free, internet for free, then this will not be beneficial for the entire industry. So everybody retaliated, everybody fought back. So these are the barriers. Let's quickly go through each one of those. Capital requirement. By the way, remember the question, a barrier to new entrants. Capital requirement. If capital required is more, competition from newcomers will be less. Economies of scale. Enjoy economies of scale can produce high volume of goods at lower cost. This will discourage new entrants. Then brand identity. Brand identity of the product or service offered by customers can serve as another barrier. Is important for infrequently purchased product. Infrequently means you will purchase it once, you will use it for 3 or 4 years, like cars, air conditioner, washing machine at your home, refrigerators, television. You will purchase it once and you will not buy it every month, every 6 months, right? That carry a high unit cost to the buyer. New entrant will often encounter significant difficulties in building up the brand identity, because in order to do so, they must commit themselves for more resources for a longer period of time. They'll have to set up a good R&D team. Then product differentiation works to enforce entry barriers, because the cost of creating genuine product differences may be too high for the new entrant. So new entrant will not be able to give that quality, that feature. Switching cost. When switching costs are high, buyers are reluctant to change. Why should I pay to suppliers? I am also paying to this current software developer, and why should I pay to this new software developer? Access to distribution channel. The unavailability of distribution channels for the new entrant will pose another significant entry barrier. Even though the growing power of internet, many firms continue to rely on their control on physical distribution. Even though internet has played a very important role in delivering the goods to the customer, but many people still like to go to the counter and buy the products. So therein we require distribution channel, right? And sustain a barrier entry for rivals. Existing firms have significant influence over the distribution channel and can restrict or obstruct their use by new firms. So I can enter into an exclusive agreement with the distribution channel. If you are distributing goods for me, you will not be distributing goods for any rival companies. Possibility of aggressive retaliation. What do you mean by retaliation? Fight back. A mere threat of aggressive retaliation by the existing competitors can discourage the entry by other firms into an industry. So a mere threat, if I'm scared that if I enter into this industry leader will destroy my profits, it will lead to me running into losses, I will not enter into that industry. A mere threat. Next one, again one of the questions that institute can ask, rivalry among the competitors tend to be cutthroat and industry profitability low when? Industry leader. When there is no industry leader, then there will be price war. And if there will be price war, the entire industry's profitability comes down because everybody is fighting for the same customer on the basis of reduced prices. Number of competitors. Even though there are many competitors in the industry, there is a presence of industry leader. But because there are many competitors, it is difficult to control all of them. So because of the sheer number of competitors that we are not able to control all of them. So this is your second point. Fixed cost. Sometimes we have incurred such a huge fixed cost that in order to break even or in order to make some profits, we'll have to reduce the profits. We'll have to reduce the prices. Just like Jio. When Jio entered in telecom business, they had incurred such a huge cost. So in order to be profitable, they had to reduce their prices. They had to give 8 SIM cards per Aadhaar card. So why they did this? Because they knew if they are not able to recover these fixed costs, we will be into losses. So after Jio gave 8 SIM cards free per Aadhaar card, they reduced the calling charges, they made it zero messaging charges, internet for free. Even Airtel had to do this, even Vodafone Idea had to do this. So don't you think so? Because of this, the entire industry's profitability affected. Yes. So even a huge fixed cost, a high fixed cost can also result into this. Exit barriers. I want to leave the industry, but I am not allowed to leave the industry. So in order to be profitable, why I want to exit from the industry? Because I feel that my industry is no longer earning sufficient profits. But I am not allowed to exit the market. I am not allowed to leave the industry. So if I am not allowed to leave the industry, what I will do? I will try to manufacture in bulk. Because of this, my profits will reduce. My cost will reduce. I will also reduce my selling price, which will result into reduced profits. Because I am selling at a lower profits, the competitors will also be reducing the selling price in order to match my selling price. So even I am not earning, they are not earning. This is exit barriers. Product differentiation. What do you mean by product differentiation? You are not able to give something unique to your customers. You are not able to offer them some unique products. If you are not able to offer unique product to the customer, why will your customer buy your product? Because you are selling at a lower price. So if your product is having some differentiated qualities, will you be selling at a lower price? No. But imagine all the mobile phone companies except Apple and few high versions of Samsung. Everybody is selling reasonable budget phones. So I have a particular specific features in my mind. I will just go through the internet, surf budget phones under 15,000. I will just compare all the features and I will buy that phone which affords, which is suitable to my needs, which is affordable. So when can I say that the company is entering into price war? When they are selling standardized products. They are not selling differentiated products. So if two mobile phone companies are giving the same features as a customer, you will buy whose company's phone? That company's phone which is giving me the same features at a reduced price. So this is product differentiation. If you are able to give differentiated product, there is no reason for you to enter into price war. But if you are not able to give something different to the customers, you will have to do price war, you will have to reduce your selling price, which will ultimately lead to reduction in profits. Slow growth. The entire industry is going through a shift in the life cycle. In introduction phase, growth phase, our sales are rising. But now we have reached maturity stage, wherein the sales growth has reduced. The sales growth has reduced. Competitors are also very competitive. The rivals are also pricing their products at a very competitive prices. So in order to attract the same customer, we indulge into price war. So these are the 6 points, guys, in which you can say that the industry profitability is low and there is a cutthroat competition, there is a price war. Which are those 6 points? Number 1, industry leader. Number 2, number of competitors. Number 3, fixed cost. Number 4, exit barriers. Number 5, product differentiation. Number 6, slow growth. So these are the 3 questions that can be asked from Michael Porter's 5 forces model. I'll just tell you which are those 3 questions. First, Michael Porter's 5 forces model. That is a question in itself. Then, how can the existing industry erect entry barriers in order to stop the new entrant from entering into the industry? So this is entry barrier. This was this question, barriers to new entrant. And the last question that we studied from this part was, rivalry among existing competitors tends to be cutthroat and there is a price war, which results into industry profitability being low. After having studied Michael Porter's 5 forces model and those through individual questions, that is barriers to new entrants, and when can you say that the rivalry among the competitors is cutthroat and the industry profitability is low. After having studied that, now let's try to understand the second question, second broad question, that is Michael Porter's generic strategies. So Michael Porter gave us this generic strategy. I will talk about this in a while. Michael Porter said that business is combination of 2 things, product and market. So as a business level manager, you should know whether the product that you are dealing in is a standardized product or it is a product which is unique. You should also know as a business level manager whether you are catering to a broad market or whether you are catering to a smaller market, that is a small segment, narrow market. So Michael Porter gave this Michael Porter's generic strategy, in which he said that this strategy can be used by any organization, large organization, small organization, profit making organization, not for profit making organization, everybody can use this. So in short, he has given us 3 strategies. How many strategies? 3 strategies. Now let us understand those 3 strategies. He said, if you are into a business of manufacturing a standard product. What do you mean by standard product? A basic product which does not have any new feature or any differentiating features. A standard basic feature like mobile phone business. We have Oppo, we have Vivo, we have OnePlus, we have MI, Samsung. Everybody is into the same business. Are they giving us something unique? No. They are offering us similar kind of features. So if you are into business of providing standard product at a broad market, tell me when will you buy that company's product? When it will be expensive or when it will be cheap? Yes, when it will be cheap as compared to the other companies. If I am able to give the product at a lesser price, sell the product at a lesser price, as a customer, will you buy from me? Yes. So if I want to sell at a lower price than my competitors, don't you think so I'll have to produce at a lower cost? Yes. So Michael Porter said this. If you are making a standard product, if you are making a standard product in a broad market, you should follow something called as cost leadership. You should follow cost leadership. What do you mean by cost leadership? That the cost of making this product is less as compared to the competitors without compromising on the quality of the product. So I am not compromising on the quality of the product. I am giving the same quality as other competitors, but I am giving the same quality at a reduced price. How? By manufacturing at a lower cost. So this is cost leadership strategy. But suppose your product is unique and you are serving the broad market. Like in mobile phones, we have iPhone. So are they selling at a cheaper price? No. They are charging high price, premium price. Why? Because they know that their product is unique. So we are following which strategy? Differentiation strategy. So Michael Porter gave cost leadership strategy. He has also given us differentiation strategy. And if you are serving the narrow market or a smaller segment market, it is called as focus or a niche strategy. Focus or niche strategy. So we are not targeting the broad market, we are targeting a narrow market. So here we may follow focused cost leadership or we may follow focused differentiation. So 3 has 2 options. A, focused cost leadership. B, focused differentiation. So if you are selling a standard product in a narrow market, then it will be called as focused cost leadership. But if you are giving unique products in a narrow market, it will be called as focused differentiation. So in all, Michael Porter's generic strategy will have 3 different strategies. Which are those? Cost leadership. Number 2, that is differentiation. And number 3, focus. But focus will have A, B. Focused cost leadership, focused differentiation. So now in this part we need to study short note on cost leadership, short note on differentiation, short note on focused. Thereafter, how will you be able to achieve cost leadership? How will you be able to achieve differentiation? How will you be able to achieve focus strategies? Then we will study the advantages, we will study the disadvantages. So these are the questions that we need to study in this category. That is the second category of this chapter, second part. The first part was Michael Porter's 5 forces model. The second part is this, which we are studying right now, Michael Porter's generic strategy. Okay. So let's try to understand this now. Michael Porter's generic strategy. According to Potter, strategies will allow the organization to gain competitive advantage from three different bases: cost leadership, differentiation, focus. These strategies have been termed generic because they can be pursued by any type or any size of business firm, even by non-for-profit organization. So, cost leadership: offering a product and services of the same quality at a lower per unit price than the rivals. In which market? Broad market. Low cost strategy that aims at broad market. Whatever I have said, okay, it is based on this diagram. Next, it requires vigorous pursuit of cost reduction. If you want to be a cost leader, don't you think so? You'll have to buy in bulk. That is, you'll have to procure at a large quantity. You'll have to manufacture in bulk. So you need to reduce your cost. And reduction in cost can be in the areas of procurement, can be areas of production, can be in the areas of storage and distribution, can be in the areas of overhead cost. By manufacturing in bulk, your per unit cost will come down. Because of the lower cost, the cost leader is able to charge lower price for its product than its competitors and still make satisfactory profits. Because my cost is less, I am able to make profits. I will give you example. Suppose this pen, the cost of making this pen is 500 rupees for me, and the competitor is making the same pen, because we are into standard product, same features. For me, the cost of making this pen is 500, but for the competitor, the same pen will cost 1000 rupees. I am selling this pen for 1500 rupees. And he is selling the same pen for 1800 rupees. Still, I am making 1000 rupees profit and he is making only 800 rupees profit. Though my selling price is less than my competitor, I am able to make more profits. Why? Because my cost is low. I hope you understood this. As I told you, we have 4 different types of questions that institute can ask. Write a short note on cost leadership. How will you achieve? What are the advantages? What are the disadvantages? So let's try to understand how will you achieve cost leadership. We have 6 points. Very simple. 1 sentences. In order to be a cost leader, you should forecast the demand. How many units you plan to sell in this year, in this quarter, in this 6 months, in this month. You should forecast the demand. Because if you forecast the demand, you will be able to order the raw material in one go. So this will help you reduce your raw material cost. You will be able to negotiate with the suppliers. You will be able to save on distribution cost. Your raw material will be here in one go. So you don't have to pay for transportation. You will reduce your cost. So that is the advantage of forecast the demand. After that, talk to your employees, talk to your workers and tell them, utilize the resources judiciously. Don't waste the resource. So, optimum utilization of resources. Don't waste any resource, be it material, be it money, be it technology. Don't waste any resource. Utilize the resources optimally. Then, try to manufacture in bulk. Try to achieve economies of scale. Because of this increased quantity of production, your cost per unit will come down. So if your cost per unit will come down, your total cost per unit will come down. Fourth, give standardized product. Don't try to go for customization. Give them standardized product. Invest in cost saving technology. try to do work smartly. Earlier, we used to have packaging department wherein worker used to manually pack the products. Many a times it was observed that because of the faulty packaging, the product was not fit for human consumption. So this resulted into wastage, defective products, waste. So what we decided, let's try to buy a machine. So we invested in machine. Now the machine packages all our product. Machine firstly will not get tired. Number two, the packaging is improved. It is not resulting into wastage. The product is now packed, sealed well. Tell me, did I not invest in cost saving technology? Yes, the two workers can do now production work. Last, resistance to differentiation till it becomes essential. Until and unless it is required, don't try to do something innovative. Continue to manufacture the same standardized product until and unless it becomes very essential for us to shift. So these are the 6 points. Let's quickly revise this. Forecast the demand for the product, optimum utilization of resources, achieve economies of scale, standardization of product, invest in cost saving technology, and resistance to differentiation. What are the advantages of Michael Porter's generic strategy of cost leadership? Whenever you are answering any advantages of cost leadership, think of Michael Porter's 5 forces model. And based on that, you answer this. Tell me, when it comes to entry barriers for new entrant, if you are a cost leader, do you think the new competitor, the new entrant will be able to compete with you as regards to the cost? No, they will not be able to compete. So low cost leaders will create barriers to market entry through continuous focus on efficiency and reducing the cost. Will the buyers bargain? Will the buyers bargain? No, buyers will not be able to exploit the cost leader and they will continue to buy the product. Even if the suppliers do bargaining, don't you think so I'll be able to absorb that bargaining power of suppliers? Why? Because my cost is low. Other competitors are also being supplied the same raw material. So if my raw material prices are increasing, their raw material prices are also increasing. So the cost is increasing for me as well as the competitors. Who will be able to absorb this rise in prices of raw material better? We. So cost leaders are able to absorb greater price increases before it must raise the price to the customers. So I'll be the last one to increase my selling price. Before me, all the other competitors will increase the selling price because their cost is much higher than mine. Rivalry. Tell me, will the competitors enter into price war with me? No. Why? Because I am the low cost leader. I am the one who is having the lowest cost. They will not enter into price war with me. If they try to do this, they will end up competing in a wrong way. I will enjoy this fight. You know why? My cost is low. So competitors are likely to avoid a price war since the low cost firm will continue to earn profits after competitors compete away their profits. So they are competing by reducing the prices. So they are compromising on their profits and selling at a lower price. Still I am making profits, they are making losses. Last point, substitute. Low cost leaders are likely to lower the cost to induce the customers to stay with their product. So if there is a substitute, I will reduce the price of the product so that the customers don't jump onto the substitute product, they buy my product. So I will reduce the price further. So these were the advantages. Again, while answering the advantages of cost leadership strategy, you should think of Michael Porter's 5 forces model. What are the disadvantages? We have 4 disadvantages. Tell me, are you the only one who will know that you are making standardized product? Will the other competitor know or not know? They will also know. So they will also try to copy what you are doing. So cost advantage may not be remaining for long, as competitors may also follow cost reduction technique. They may also follow the same thing. You can achieve cost leadership only when you can sell in larger quantities. You wanted to achieve cost leadership, so you manufactured in bulk. You bought raw materials in bulk. To save transportation costs, to reduce the raw material prices, you bought everything in bulk. You manufactured in bulk. But if you are not able to sell in bulk, then will you be able to justify the cost? No. So in order to succeed in this cost leadership, you should be able to achieve high sales volume. And many a times organizations, with the intention of reducing the cost, they reduce the cost of advertisement, they reduce the cost of R&D, they reduce the cost of market research. But tell me, there are few departments in which you cannot reduce the cost. If you try to reduce the cost, it will be beneficial for you temporarily. Temporarily, you will be able to reduce the cost, but in the long run, it will not be useful, because your future will be bleak. Your survival in the future will be very difficult. So cost leaders tend to keep their costs low by minimizing the advertising, market research and R&D. So they are trying to keep their cost low by reducing the advertisement, by reducing the market research, by reducing the market research and development. But this approach can prove to be expensive in the long run. This can be very, very difficult for you to sustain in the future. Fourth point, technological changes are a great threat to the cost leader. Changes in the technology will result into me changing to other methods of production, which will require more cost, more investments. So changes in technology is also considered to be a threat for us. So these were the 4 disadvantages. So short note of cost leadership, how to achieve cost leadership, what are the advantages, what are the disadvantages. Same 4 things are applicable for differentiation. One more question can be asked. On what basis do the company do differentiation? First of all, what do you mean by differentiation? We are giving some unique product to our customers in a broad target market. So if you want to buy a luxurious car, Mercedes, Audi, BMW, Volvo, we have 4 options. Unique product. Which market? Broad market. So differentiation strategy. This strategy is aimed at broad market, creation of product and service that is perceived by the customer as unique. So I am giving something unique to the customer. Uniqueness can be as regards to the design, can be as regards to the image, feature, technology, dealer network, customer service. It can be these areas. The design of the product, the reputation of the product, the features, the quality, the customer service, the technology. Because of these differentiating factors, the business can charge premium for its product. So the organization will be able to charge more price. But tell me, can you guarantee that differentiation will give you competitive advantage? In 2 situations, you cannot guarantee that the company will get competitive advantage because of differentiation. In 2 situations. Number one, if that product which you are offering to the customer, a standardized product can fulfill the needs. then the customer will say, why should I buy this product? Might as well buy it a standardized product. No, why should I pay more for this product? So if the standard product fulfills the needs of the customer, then this differentiation will not create competitive advantage. So this is the first one. The standardized product is able to fulfill the needs of the customer. Number two, the differentiating factor that the company has can be copied by the competitors very easily. So if I have a technology, I don't have a patent for the same, I launched this in the market, the competitor saw it, they also copied the same technology because I don't have patents for it. And since they have copied, they have not invested so much in R&D, so their selling price will be less. So the customer can get the same product at a cheaper price. Will they buy my product? No. Why my product was expensive? Because it required research and development. So I included research and development cost, but the competitors copied it. So they did not incur any R&D cost. So their cost is less. Their cost is less, their selling price is less. So differentiation does not guarantee competitive advantage when if the standard product sufficiently meet the customer's needs. Number two, rapid imitation by competitors is possible. Second, competitors will be able to copy your product, technology. If you are able to achieve differentiation, you can have a better product flexibility. You can launch one model in every 2 years. Nobody will care. People will still line up to buy your product. They will be anxiously waiting for your product. They will not shift to some other product. You will have greater compatibility. Your cost will be lower. Your improved cost. Less maintenance, greater convenience, more features. So these are the benefits of differentiation. If you are into differentiation and if you are able to achieve differentiation, these are the benefits. So what are the bases of differentiation? 3 different bases: product, organization, pricing. Few organizations have such unique innovative products that it becomes a basis for their differentiation. So innovative products that meet the customer's needs can be an area where a company has an advantage over competitors. It can also be about pricing, like FedEx. FedEx generally charges premium prices, but they assure you that the product will be delivered within the specified days. And once they have given us that commitment, it will be delivered. So they are trying to do differentiation on the basis of pricing. And then we have organization. Few organizations like Sony, they make excellent product. Any product that they make, be it television, be it cameras, the product made by that organization is highly differentiated. You cannot compete with any other. You cannot compare this product with any other. It is so unique. So the organization is having that differentiation, like Honda Motors, like Mercedes, Sony, differentiation on the basis of organization. How will you be able to achieve differentiation? If you want to achieve differentiation, how will you be able to achieve? First things first, you should try to check the taste and preferences of the customer. And then on the basis of the taste and preferences of the customer, you should give that product which satisfies their needs. So offer utility for the customers to match the products with the tastes and preferences. So you will give those products to the customers that fulfill the needs, the tastes and preferences. Elevate the performance of the product. Try to do something which the other competitors are not able to. Enhanced quality, better integration of hardware, software, better safety. elevate the performance of the product. Give them high quality product or services. Give them high quality product and service which other competitors are not able to give. Do rapid product innovation. So if you want to achieve differentiation, you will have to be on your toes. You will have to have a great R&D team which will do product innovations frequently. Enhance the image and brand value. You should take steps to enhance the image and the brand value. Fix the selling price of the product based on the features that we are offering and the buying capacity of the customer. So if you want to charge a premium price, firstly you should check the buying capacity of the customer, and also you should check the unique feature that we are offering that other competitors are not offering. So based on these two combinations, based on these two factors, you will decide the selling price, buying capacity of the customer and the unique features. The next point, advantages of differentiation strategy. Again, whenever you are answering differentiation strategy advantages or you are answering cost leadership advantages, think of Michael Porter's 5 forces model. Here also you will use the same technique. How? Tell me, if I am providing customers with unique differentiated products, will the new entrant be able to come into the market and provide the same differentiating products at a reasonable price or at comparable price? No, it is difficult for the new entrant to come up with a unique product. It acts as a barrier for the new entrant. This product differentiation will act as a barrier for the new entrant. So innovative features are an expensive offer. New entrants generally avoid these features because it is tough for them to provide the same product at comparable price. Buyers, they do not negotiate for higher price because they know whatever they are getting is unique and there are not many competitors who are supplying the same uniqueness. So there are fewer options. Suppliers, if the suppliers increase the price of the raw material components, don't you think so even I can increase the price of the product because the customers are price insensitive? They are willing to pay more. So differentiators charge a premium price. They can afford to absorb the higher cost of supplies and customers are willing to pay extra also. So the customers are also ready to pay extra price, extra money. Rivalry. Tell me, if I am manufacturing differentiated products, will the customers leave my product and go to a rival company? No. Here we can take advantage of brand loyalty. If I am an iPhone user, I will not shift to any other phone. I know the compatibility. I know the integration of hardware and software. So once I have used iPhone, I will not switch to some other product. So rivalry, brand loyalty acts as a safeguard against competitors. It means that the customers will be less sensitive to price increases as long as the firm can satisfy the needs of its customers. And last, substitute. Do you think differentiated products actually are worried about substitutes? No. Here also customer loyalty, brand value plays a very important role. Substitute products can't replace the differentiated products which have high brand value and enjoy customer loyalty. So what are the disadvantages of differentiation strategy? We have 3 disadvantages. The uniqueness is very difficult to sustain for a longer period of time. So in long term, uniqueness is difficult to sustain. It is difficult. Charging too high price for differentiated features may cause the customer to switch to another alternative. So if you are charging way too high price, the customer will feel I can get the same product, similar features. Why should I pay more? So if I am charging way too high price, the customer may shift to someone else. Differentiation fails to work if its basis is something that is not valued by the customer. So if the customer does not think that this feature is valuable, it is unique, they may shift. So according to you, your organization is making unique products, but it should be unique in the eyes of the customers. If the customer feels that this product is not unique, they will not buy from you. They will shift to some other competitors. So differentiation fails to work if the basis is something that is not valued by the customer. Third strategy, guys. So we have completed this cost leadership. We have completed this differentiation. The third one, that is focus. Focus means focusing on a smaller market, narrow market, smaller segment. Niche market, niche. Focus strategy is based upon selecting a segment or a group of segment of the market. So I'm not targeting the entire broad market, a specific smaller segment. It may be a locality, it may be a geographical location, it may be a smaller segment of the main product, herbal product, natural product. And then focusing on serving their needs and wants. The essence of focus strategy is the exploitation of a particular market to the max. I want to focus only on this market, narrow market. I don't want to focus on broader market. I don't want to cater to the entire population. I want to cater to only this part. Focus strategy are most effective when the consumers have distinctive preferences. So the customers have unique requirement and that cannot be fulfilled by broad market, or the requirements when the rival firms are not attempting to specialize in the same target market. So the broad players, competitors who are serving the broad market are not paying attention to the smaller market. So that time is the best opportunity for you to enter into the smaller segment. An organization using focus strategy may concentrate on a particular group of customers, geographic market, or a product line in order to serve well-defined but narrow market. So here my focus is serving the narrow market better than the competitors in the broader market. So I want to serve customers in the narrow market, and I will make sure that the services that I provide, the goods that I sell is way better than the competitors who are selling in broader market. So focus strategy has been classified as focused cost leadership and focused differentiation. So what do you understand by focused cost leadership? Narrow market, standardized product. A focused cost leadership strategy will emphasize on low cost while serving the narrow market. A focused cost leader creates own niche in the given market. So I am focusing on narrow market, giving standardized product. I am creating my own smaller segment, trying to give value creation for the customers. A firm that follows this strategy does not charge the lowest price. So I am not charging the lowest price when you compare it with the broader market. No, no, no. I am charging lowest price in my market, in narrow market. So if you compare me with the broad market, I may be selling at a higher price than them, but they are not my market. They are not my competitors. Who's my competitor? My narrow market, my segment, my niche. So amongst the niche, amongst the segment, I am the one who's providing at the lowest cost. So this is important, guys. Please pay attention here. A firm follows this strategy does not necessarily charge the lowest price. Does not charge the lowest price in the industry. So I am not the low cost leader when you compare the broad market and the narrow market. If you compare both the markets, I may not be the lowest one, having the lowest cost. But I charge low price relative to other firms that compete within the target. But if you compare me with other players who are serving in the same narrow market, I may be having the lowest cost. I hope you understood this. Focused differentiation. Offering unique feature, narrow market. Firms that compete based on uniqueness target a narrow market are following focused differentiation strategy. Now, how will you achieve focused strategy? Here, how will we achieve focused strategy? They are not telling you how will you achieve focused cost leadership or focused differentiation. Overall, focus. Focus means niche market, smaller market. So, how will you achieve focused strategy? 4 points. First of all, you will have to select the segment. Select the segment which is not covered by broad market. Select a smaller segment. Select a specific niche. Once you have selected a specific niche, this smaller market, you will have to provide superior skills. Giving your services or selling your goods in a smaller market, you will have to have better skills. You need to have superior skills because you are selling in a smaller market. You will have to generate high efficiency for serving such niche market. High efficiency. You need to perform better, fast service. Develop innovative ways in managing the value chain. You will have to come up with innovative ways. How can I do things quickly? How can I reduce my cost? How can I increase my revenue? You have to come up with innovative ways. How can I market this in this area? Come up with innovative ways. So this was achieving focus strategy. Now we have advantages of focused strategy. Again, focused strategy. They are not talking about focus, cost, leadership or focus differentiation. Advantages of focused strategy. Premium prices can be charged because we are serving the focused market. So we are specializing in a particular market. We are having a niche. So we can charge premium prices. And because of the services that we give, we have become an expert in that particular narrow market. See here, we need to develop superior skills, right? So we have developed such a superior skills in the products that we deal in the services that we provide. We don't have to worry about the new entrant or we don't have to worry about the rivals because they will not be able to compete with us. So due to the tremendous expertise, rivals and new entrants may find it difficult to compete. They will not be able to match our skills, our competencies. So what are the disadvantages? We have 3 disadvantages. Number 1, you want to do focus strategy, you want to target a narrow market, you need to have superior skills. What if you don't have superior skills? What if you lack the basic competencies, the basic requirements of succeeding in this focus market? Will you be able to perform well? No. So you are lacking the distinctive competencies in this narrow market. So you don't have the required skills, you don't have the competencies to survive in this market. Because the market is narrow, because of the limited demand for product and services, the cost is also high. The cost is also high. So there is a limited demand for product and services because of which the cost is high. And in the long run, this niche could disappear or be taken over by larger competitors. This niche could disappear. So whatever today you are doing, it may so happen that in future this product or services is no longer there in the market, or it is taken over by a bigger competitor. So this finishes our second point, guys. We started this chapter saying that we need to study three concepts. The first concept was Michael Porter's 5 forces model, in which we had two separate individual questions also. The first being, how can the existing players create entry barriers? Second, when can you say that the industry profitability is low and when there is a cutthroat competition? Then we studied the second part, that is Michael Porter's generic strategy. In this we discussed these three strategies. Which are those strategies? Cost leadership strategy, differentiation strategy, focus strategy. Now coming to the last part of this chapter, guys. Last part, that is best cost provider strategy. Now before we do best cost provider strategy, this is just an extension of Michael Porter's generic strategy. In Michael Porter's generic strategy, what we studied, that an organization can either be a cost leader, can be a differentiator, or can be a focused player. Yes or no? Yes. So this is a further development to those three strategies. So best cost provider strategy talks about giving value for money. Giving value for money to the customers, and how they do this we will study here. Okay, so best cost provider strategy. The new model of best cost provider strategy is a further development of the above three strategies. It is directed towards giving customer more value for money by emphasizing both on low cost and upscale differences. What do you mean by upscale differences? Giving unique products at a lesser price. So low cost, unique products. Low cost, unique product. Something different at a reasonable price. The objective is to keep the cost and price lower than those of other sellers. So my objective is to give them products which are less in price. The selling price is less as compared to the competitors. Let's look at this diagram for a minute. Low cost, differentiation. These are talking about the products. Market. Broad market, narrow market. We have cost leadership, we have differentiation. This is broad, bigger market. Focused cost leadership, focused differentiation. So this is something which you already know. So this is best cost provider, connecting all the corners of the strategy. So what is best cost provider strategy? I'll give you two examples. If you understand these two examples, these 2 points will be covered. So what do you mean by best cost provider? Please hear me out, guys. Very important, very important. I am making this pen, and the same pen having the same features is being made, manufactured and sold by the competitors also. So we too are making the same type of pen, same quality, same features. Everything is same. The packing is also same. Feature is also same. Everything is same. I am selling this pen at 1500 rupees and the competitor is selling this pen for 2000 rupees. From where will you buy? From where will you buy? I am selling this pen at 1500 rupees. The competitor is selling the same pen, having the same feature, having the same quality, same packing, everything same. But he is selling at 2000, I am selling at 1500. From where will you buy? From me. So this is one of the examples of best cost provider strategy. When the competitors are giving comparable products and features, you try to sell at a lower price. So when the products are the same, comparable quality, comparable features, try to sell at a lower price. But when the prices are same, I am also selling at 2000, the competitor is also selling at 2000. I am also selling at 2000, the competitor is also selling at 2000. Now, when will you buy from me? You come to my shop, I tell you, this pen is for 2000. I give you one extra refill for this. And I am willing to give you a warranty card which states that if anything happens to this pen within a period of 6 months, you'll get a new pen, no questions asked. So now, am I giving you something extra for those 2000? Yes. The price of the pen is same, 2000 for me, 2000 for the competitor. So you came to my shop, you told me what's different, why should I not buy from the competitor? He is also selling at 2000, you are also selling at 2000. I told you all, sir, madam, the selling price is same, but I am giving you extra refill. That competitor is not giving you. I am giving you 6 months warranty. That competitor is not giving you, I am giving you. So am I offering better features, better quality, better product at the same price? Yes. So this is best cost provider. I hope you understood this. Now let's read this. Best cost provider strategy will involve providing customers more value for money by, so value for money, if you observe now, this is the same sentence which was written here. Same sentence which was written here. More value for money by emphasizing on low cost and better quality difference. So how can you do this? Remember my example. Selling at 1500, he is selling at 2000. Offering the product at a lower price than what is being offered by rivals with comparable quality and features. So comparable quality and features, lower price. So same quality, same feature, I am selling at a lower price, you will buy from me. So best cost provider strategy. Second, price is the same, 2000, 2000. But I am giving you something extra. Charging similar price, but higher quality and better features. Higher quality and better features. So the price of the product is the same. I am giving you better features, better quality, extended warranty, extra refill, something extra, something more. I hope you understood this. So this was a very small part. I hope you understood this. So with this, we complete chapter number 5. In this chapter, we had 3 concepts to discuss. Michael Porter's 5 forces model, Michael Porter's generic strategy, and best cost provider strategy. So with this, we have completed this chapter. I hope you all have revised this thoroughly. I will see you in the next class. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.